Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Three Tips here. I've got a bag of jeweler's scrap that I promised a friend that I would do for him. He's a jeweler and he hangs out at our shop and is associated with my boss, the jeweler. So what we're going to do here is start this out by getting a weight on all of his material here. Just throw it in this container and get a weight on it, and then we're gonna pick through and see exactly what it is that we're dealing with here. So we've got 104.9 grams. All right, I'm gonna take this down and we're gonna put some magnifiers on. And we're gonna look through this and see exactly what we got. I'm just gonna dig through this and see what we got. That looks like silver. I'm gonna pull some of these bigger chunks out and set them over here off to the side. And we'll have to test each of these pieces to see exactly what we're dealing with. My friend Rick, he does some casting. So it's going to be pieces like this where he poured molten metal into a mold. And some of this is going to be gold and silver alloyed together. So we're going to have to go through and test all these pieces before we proceed. I've been putting this off because it kind of scared me a little bit how to do this. He pointed out that this piece of metal, he wasn't sure what it is. We'll be able to do some tests and try to figure out what that is for him. There's little beads of gold off his workbench. Pieces of silver here. We just have to dig through all this. Probably stainless steel. And what we'll do now is, I've got most of the big pieces out in this container here. We can test these and see what we got. And in this, I think what I'm going to do, this is the powdered stuff off his bench that he swept up. I mean, there's hair in here, dust, little bits of toothpick and wood, probably some tobacco, who knows. But what we're going to do with this is check it with a magnet. I got everything sorted out. I got a few pieces of karat gold here. I've got some scrap steel pieces in here. And then I've got some silver. Most of it was silver in here. And now what I'm going to do is put a magnet in a plastic bag. We're going to check the filings here for magnetic material. And we'll take that and put it in with our scrap if I find any here. There's a few pieces there, but not much. It's mostly just small iron filings, it looks like. And those should go okay right in the nitric acid treatments. So it's not very much steel stuff at all in there. We're just going to go ahead and leave it in there. And then the next step is to treat this with dilute nitric acid to dissolve out any of the silver and other base metals that are in these filings. Next step is to take our filings here, transfer these into a melt dish, and we'll take them out and incinerate these filings in a furnace that I've got set up out here in my shop. I've got an electric furnace out in my shop. I've had this furnace for years and never used it, and so I decided to try it out with this refining. It's putting out some gases in my shop, so I've got a respirator on now. This is a fairly nice furnace. It heated up very quickly. As you can see, the melt dish is red hot, and the contents of the melt dish is red hot. So all the combustible material has been burnt off of that material, and I'm stirring it up here with a little piece of steel rod, and I want to turn it off now. I'm going to turn the furnace off because it looks like it's getting ready to melt the contents of the melt dish. I really liked that electric furnace. It worked well. It heated up quickly, and it did a good job of incinerating that material. And so now what I'm going to do is take the silver that I separated out by hand and put it in an unglazed melt dish, and then we're going to burn any impurities off with our torch. We're going to heat those pieces of metal to redness to burn off any oil or grease that may be present. And then what I'll do is add some distilled water to a beaker up here on the heating pad, about 200 milliliters. And then we'll take our pieces of burnt silver. You'll notice the camera got in my way right here. That's why it's moving around like that. But we're going to take the pieces of burnt silver now and add those to the distilled water. I turn the heat on there to about medium heat to start heating up the water. Here I've got some concentrated nitric acid, 68 to 70% concentration, and I'm going to measure out about 150 milliliters of that acid in this beaker, and then use it to dose nitric acid into the silver. So here I'm going to pour about half of that charge of nitric acid in with the silver. The nitric acid will dissolve base metals such as copper or zinc, and it will dissolve the silver, but it will not dissolve the gold. The gold particles will get left behind, and we can filter them out and recover them. Here is about 45 minutes worth of footage sped up. I did a time-lapse video with this footage, and you'll see as the reaction progresses and the heat penetrates into the reaction, the fume production will become greater, and then it'll clear up towards the end of the reaction. Here I'm adding some more nitric acid to the reaction, and everything in the beaker is hot, so I'm adding it slowly and carefully. And what I'm trying to do here is add just enough nitric acid to just dissolve all the metal that's in that beaker. I don't want a whole bunch of excess nitric acid in there when I get done with this reaction. Add a little dash of nitric acid here. Still got a little bit of metal to dissolve, and then we're going to rehydrate it by adding some more distilled water, and we'll just let this reaction continue back here. Our material here has cooled off now to room temperature. Transfer it into this mortar and pestle. I'm going to grind it up, and then we're going to put it in a beaker. Now that I've got it powdered, what we'll do is I've got a screen here, and we're going to get this into this screen, get it into this beaker. The goal here is to get that material into a finely divided state so that the nitric acid treatment that we're about to do on it can react efficiently with that material. Now what I'm going to do is put our finely divided particles up here. That's the material that should contain some gold. This here I'm going to add it right back in because it probably has some precious metals in it as well. I just wanted to get everything ground up real good. Now I'm going to add some distilled water. About 100 milliliters. I'm adding a few milliliters of nitric to this. Maybe about, let's see, what do we got? 50 in there. I'll put about 30 milliliters in or so. And we're going to cover this up now. Turn the heat up and let this react. The nitric acid will dissolve copper, zinc, nickel, iron, and any other base metals that's in there with the material, but it will not dissolve the gold particles. It will leave them behind. Here I'm going to add a 3 milliliter dose of nitric acid, and you'll notice I'll get very little to no reaction from that nitric addition. Same thing with the silver in the other beaker there. It looks like these reactions are complete. I just added the nitric acid to this beaker right here, and I don't see a whole lot of fume production. So I'm going to conclude that this reaction in this beaker that I'm taking down is complete. Now all we got to do is wait for a little bit of stuff over here in this beaker to react, and then we'll be done with this. And if you look in here, let's see if I get the camera pulled back. This is the few pieces of carat gold that I have, and we should have a little bit of carat gold filings in here, and so we'll get that all filtered out, get that together, and we'll dissolve this in aqua regia. And then we'll precipitate the silver and recover the silver also. Coming up, we've got every last bit of metal to go into solution in this beaker here. So I'm going to pull it off. I'm going to add some cold distilled water here to cool it down a little bit. Both of these solutions have cooled down now. I've got one of my specially prepared filter papers here so that we can capture 100% of the solids as we pour them into the filter here. This thing to seal up good. There we go. And now we're going to go ahead and start filtering all of the solids out of these liquids. Here we go. I've used hot dilute nitric acid to dissolve the silver and the base metals, and the gold gets left behind as solids. So we now have an effective separation of the silver and the base metals from the gold. You'll notice that the filter paper is starting to load up. Getting some solids, clogging it up, and we've got some solids down in the bottom of our beaker here. I'm going to get this into the filter now, because that's probably going to be a little bit of precious metals. Gold, probably. There's a steel pin in here. It's just a steel pin. All right, we've got most of that liquid pulled through. Here's what's in our filter. It's a purple mud. This is probably going to be particles of gold. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and try to recover any solids that was in the sweeps or the the filings that we had in our other beaker. I'm going to go ahead and pour this in now. There's our solids down in there. I'm going to go ahead and load the filter up with those solids now. I've got to be honest, I don't see very much gold in those solids. It looks mostly like abrasive material from the jeweler's sanding discs that are used to shape and repair jewelry. I put my squirt bottle that contains distilled water in the microwave, and I heated the water up, and now I'm attempting to rinse as much of the silver out of those solids as possible, because we're going to aqua regia next. A bunch of silver in there would form silver chloride, so I want to get it all rinsed out. We've got all the silver dissolved in this solution. And we've got the gold now up here in our funnel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the funnel out of the way. Here's our solids. This will be our gold because the gold did not dissolve in the nitric acid. Only the silver dissolved in the nitric acid. I'm going to set that up out of the way. And now what we'll do is I've got a clean beaker here with some copper, clean copper. I'm going to pour our silver that's in solution into this beaker, and what will happen is, in accordance with the reactivity series of metals, the silver in this solution will cement out on that piece of copper. This solution is blue because sterling silver that we dissolved in this process is an alloy of about 90% silver and 10% copper, so that's why we got a blue solution here. I'm gonna pour this right on in. You'll see an immediate reaction on that copper. The silver will start cementing out on there immediately. See that gray powdered silver forming on the copper. This is about 40 minutes speeded up into 10 or 12 seconds. This is one of the coolest reactions to watch in the refining world because it happens quickly and you get a whole bunch of cement silver coming out of solution on that copper. Just fascinating. I allowed this silver to settle overnight. You can see that mossy silver build up on the copper there. This reaction is one of the neatest reactions we get to observe in refining because it happens fast and there's a large volume of silver that gets produced. And what I'm going to do now is just give this a good stir because some of the silver nitrate will get bound up in the silver powder at the bottom of this beaker. So I'm going to give it a stir to release any silver nitrate that might be down in that silver so it can come in contact with our piece of copper. See, our copper is still having silver cement on it. When this reaction is complete, that piece of copper will be bright pink. I'm going to give the silver jar one more quick stir here. Make sure we got everything cemented out on that piece of copper. And then I'm going to get this thing out of the way. I've got a unglazed melt dish here. This is our carat scrap that came off of a Rolex stainless steel watch band. It was held together with carat gold. Put that in our melt dish. Now I'm going to burn this right quick. Alright, I'm going to take this piece of steel here and add it to the other steel scrap that we got. Now I've got a beaker here. We'll add some hydrochloric acid to this beaker. Just about 50 milliliters or so, not much. Alright, I'm going to pour the pieces of carat gold right into this hydrochloric acid. And what we'll do, cover it up. I'm going to set it up here on the heat. I'm going to add about 2 milliliters or so of nitric acid now to form aqua regia and start dissolving that carat gold. As per standard practice, I'm going to add a few drops of sulfuric acid, precipitate out any lead that might be present. Now we'll take our filter here that has our solids in it, and I'm going to empty it or place it in this container down here. Now what I'll do is add a little bit of hydrochloric acid. It's about 100 milliliters or so. Alright, we're going to add some concentrated nitric acid here. That's 3 milliliters. 9 milliliters of concentrated nitric acid. Now a couple drops of sulfuric acid to take care of any lead that may be present. Okay, let's give this a swirl. Cover it up and put it up here on the heat. Add some heat, and now we wait. Here's what not to do when adding nitric to a hot solution. That's a full pipette going in. I put it in too fast and almost create a boil over and a big mess for myself there. It's an example of what not to do when you got a beaker full of hot material. I've had both of these beakers on boiling now for about an hour and a half or so. I think this one's complete. If you look down here at this one, however, it's got some pieces left in the bottom of the beaker. It might be passivation. Passivation happens when the hydrochloric acid reacts with silver in the gold and creates a crust of silver chloride and shields the gold from the action of the acids. I'm trying to crush these up now. They do not look like they're gonna be any gold in these. It does look like silver chloride. So I think this may be done as well. We'll go ahead and pull these down. Here we go. We're going to pull these down now, let them cool off. And then what we'll do is once they cool down, we'll go for filtration and see if we can precipitate out any gold. While we're waiting for it to cool, I'm going to reach in here, get a little bit of this solution, a piece of filter paper. We're going to test this now for the presence of gold with stannous chloride testing solution. There you see, we got a nice dark stain, which means we've got gold in solution in this beaker. Let's get in here and get another piece of filter paper, and we'll test the solution in this other small beaker. And we have gold in that solution as well. Solutions have been allowed to cool to room temperature. And now what we'll do is pull the solutions through these filters and get all the solids out of the liquid. Finally got some room in the funnel. I've got full vacuum being applied, and there's some particulate that's clogging up this filter, and it's going to take a while to get all of this liquid pulled through this filter. I've got a full 29 inches of vacuum being applied to that flask, and this is about 30 minutes worth of footage condensed into a few seconds. Well, you can see the solution is very cloudy. And so what I'm going to do is put a clean flask on here, and we're going to pour the solution right back through the same filter. See if we can get some of that cloudiness to clear up. See how cloudy that is? This is typical with jeweler's waste. It's probably mostly silver chloride. So here we go. We're gonna pour it back through. the loaded up filter now a second time. See if we get this thing to clear up. You'll notice I'm using a vacuum to pull the solution through that filter. I don't think we'd be able to accomplish this without the vacuum. I just wanted to show you over here my vacuum rig. This is an 8-gallon air compressor tank, and I've installed a HVAC vacuum pump on there, and I've got a manifold system set up with a gauge, got an automatic cutoff switch. And what I'll do is I'll put a link to the construction video of how I made the vacuum system. I'll put a link to that in this video in the description block. And of course, what SreeTips video would be complete without a look at my electrolytic silver cell. This is pure silver crystal that I just harvested, about 2 kilos. And I made fresh electrolyte for the silver cell. Let's take a peek in here. I just started it up today. As you can see, we've got fresh tiny crystals starting to plate out on the inside of my stainless steel bowl. Here we go, moment of truth for my friend Rick, the jeweler. Gonna see what kind of yield we get from his material. I've got all the gold dissolved and in this solution. Gonna transfer it into this beaker here, and then we're gonna add some stump out. Notice how clear that solution is. That second pass through that filter really cleans it up nicely. And now here we go, we're gonna add some stump out. Okay, here we go. We're gonna put some stump out in the gold solution. First spoon right now. Here it goes. See what happens. This is real time. I'm not speeding the camera up or anything. And boom, look at that cloud of gold forming in there. Looks pretty good. Very nice. It's kind of neat looking. See how it formed a little bit of a layer in there? I'm going to go ahead and add another half a spoon here of sodium metabisulfite. See if we can get the rest of the gold to precipitate out of that solution. That only took about 1.5 spoons of sodium metabisulfite, and we've got everything precipitated out now, as you can see by that clean stannous test. Our gold has settled completely, and I just emptied the stock pot. See if we can get this gold to slide sideways. There it goes. Kind of gauge how much we got in there by how well this movement does. Alright, I wanted to take a look at this filter. This is the solids that we filtered out of the solution before we precipitated, and this will have traces of gold in it, less than 1/10 of a gram probably. So I'll add this to my filter paper storage and recover it when I burn my filters. This is my stock pot. It's full of copper. Any gold refining waste goes down into this stock pot. Any traces of precious metals will cement out on that copper. And so now I just emptied it out into my waste treatment bucket. The copper solution that was in there on top of this. So what I'm going to do So I'm going to just slowly pour the gold refining waste from this into my stock pot. You'll notice it's got a little tint of color. This is not gold. We've already tested it for the presence of gold. This is probably a little bit of platinum group metals, maybe some palladium or platinum. I'm just going to add this right into my stock pot now so that the traces of metals in this solution will come out of solution on the copper in this stock pot. Alright, now we're going to take, that's a look at the gold that we recovered from his waste. Not very much. I'm going to take and add some hydrochloric acid here. Rinse this off right quick. Pour the waste right on into the stock pot. Okay, this is a second hydrochloric acid rinse. You can see the solution is colorless. And so now what we'll do is we'll pour this off. And then I'm going to rinse with some distilled water here and get all the chemicals rinsed off best I can. I've got some waste in here in a temporary container. What we'll do is we'll add this into my stock pot. Try to rinse some of that metal down into there. That's gold and platinum group metals from previous refinings. Down in the bottom of this container, I've got another container here that has gold refining waste in it. There's some bits of gold in the bottom of this flask. That's just gold, so I'm going to keep it down in there and we'll dissolve that out of there. Just wanted to add the liquid into the stock pot. We'll recover this later with some aqua regia. Here's some more residual refining waste that contains precious metals. I just add that right on in. Last but not least, this is some waste solution from the platinum refining video. I added a piece of copper in there, and you can see there's some precious metals coming out of solution on the copper. This is from my platinum refining video. I'm going to add this now, the whole thing, into my stock pot. It will have precious metals in it. And there you look at that, see that black coming out of solution on the copper? That's pretty cool looking. Look at that. That's precious metals from the platinum refining video. I'm just going to add the whole thing right on into the stock pot here. We'll rinse it in. And I'll get to use my beaker again. Finally get it back. Been held hostage by this for a couple weeks. All right, let's get our gold for the jeweler into this filter. Not very much. Here we go. We're going to take our gold down in the bottom of our filter, transfer it into this little melt dish. Take our gold, put it over here on the melt table. I'm going to put some borax on it to try to keep the paper glued into the melt dish there as we melt this. And we're going to hit it with the flame now. there's the lens. There we go. Here's the jeweler's little button of pure gold. Probably 990 to 995 purity. Maybe a little better. We'll put it on the scale down here and see what the weight is. Looks like we got 2.4 grams of pure gold. Gold's going for about 60 a gram right now, so that's about $140 worth of metal right there. Now we'll turn our attention to the jeweler's silver here. I've got a piece of copper that I want to try to get out of here. And I'm going to transfer it right over here into another beaker that I'm using to cement some electrolyte with. We're going to pour this waste copper solution off now into a container that I have set up for that down here. This is a bucket with some copper in it to cement out any residual precious metals that are in this waste solution that I'm pouring off. This has been allowed to cement for the jeweler for 2 days, so there shouldn't be any silver left in this solution. I'm going to add some distilled water to this and rinse the silver off, and I'll pour the rinsed water off down into my waste bucket. I've rinsed the silver powder over and over and got most of the blue liquid out of it. So what we're going to do now is transfer it into a filter here. Got all the silver in the filter now. You can see down here that we still got a little bit of a tint of blue to the rinse liquid. That's okay. We're not going for high purity here. What I'm going to do now is transfer the silver into this melt dish down here. Carefully. Okay, let's take our silver over here, put it down on the melt table, and get this melt started. Now this is about 6 or 8 minutes of footage condensed down into a few seconds. That silver was still wet, so it took quite a while to get it to melt. And in a minute you'll see me trade torches. The torch that I've got clamped there, I had to take that down, and then here in a few seconds you'll see I turn off the oxyacetylene torch and grab the MAPP gas torch, because I don't want the silver to absorb a bunch of oxygen from that oxyacetylene torch. So I got the MAPP gas torch on it now, and I'll pour the bar with the MAPP gas torch. Got a 5% sulfuric acid solution here, distilled water and sulfuric acid. What we'll do is that'll take that flux off that came over with the pour. It's been in there about 5 minutes. Let's see if we can get it out of here and take it over here to the sink. Sulfuric acid solution does a pretty good job of taking that flux off of there. There we go, a nice pure silver bar. probably 990. If it gets close to 39 is fine, but the main contaminant here will be copper. Let's get a weight on this thing. All right, here's our pure silver bar. Probably 990 purity. And we're going to throw it on the scale here. See what kind of weight we got. 80.9 grams. That's 2.6 troy ounces of 990 pure silver. This will conclude Rick's Jeweler's Waste Refining. I got a 2.6 troy ounce pure silver bar here, about 990 in purity. I've got a button of pure gold here for Rick, 2.4 grams of pure gold. Can you see that? This will conclude this video. I've got the platinum video coming up next, so we'll be working on platinum part 3 next. I'm buried in work. I've had Rick's material here for 2 months, so I had to get this done for him. It's complete. I'm going to turn the metal over to him, and we're going to get started on platinum refining part 3. Thanks for watching.